Business continuity, the practice of assessing for risks, planning for disruptions to business, testing plans, training staff, and continuously improving. YKHC understands the importance of business continuity planning. This strategic planning effort ensures the continuity of performing mission-essential services across a wide range of emergencies and incidents, and enables our organization to continue functions on which our patients and community depend. The Yukon-Kuskokwim Health Corporation, YKHC for short, is a tribal healthcare organization in Bethel, Alaska. YKHC is the sole care provider serving an area roughly the size of Oregon and southwest Alaska. Hello everyone, my name is James Marks. I am very fortunate to have worked at YKHC for over 8 years providing decision support and eventually overseeing the Revenue Cycle Division as the director. In my time at YKHC, I made many lasting professional and personal relationships, and I've been able to get information from those past relationships on the current state of YKHC, plans that are ongoing that would impact future implications of a business continuity plan, and many other aspects of business. The YKHC Business Continuity Plan outlines the necessary steps to strategically implement, coordinate, and execute activation, relocation, continuity of operations, and continuously improve the revenue cycle. The Revenue Cycle Business Continuity Plan needed to have many standard boilerplate elements found in every BCP. However, there were a number of additional elements and organization-specific content added for corporate needs. Because this particular business continuity plan is division-centric, the staff involved are more limited and more specialized within the revenue cycle leadership team. Key team members include, but are not limited to, the registration director, the revenue cycle director, deputy director, medical records manager, coding services manager, and the patient financial services manager. The Revenue Cycle Division's business continuity planning activities included conducting a preliminary briefing questionnaire, or PBQ. This activity gathers mission-essential data such as vital records, computer information systems, IT hardware, materials and supplies, facilities, and so on. Once that is complete, the team will conduct a Business Impact Assessment, or a BIA. This assessment and analysis seeks to define mission-essential functions, points of failure while conducting a risk assessment, and ultimately, recommendations for countermeasures to mitigate potential future incidents. With all of this at hand, the team will define recovery time objectives and recovery point objectives, which, in short, are the maximum and minimum time thresholds that certain functions can be foregone, as well as prioritization of which services must be brought back up first. This will assist in allocation of scarce resources such as human resources and workforce. These resources can be used towards stabilization after a disruption to service. With all the requisite data collected, the team will turn its efforts towards authoring, approving, and eventually publishing the division-specific business continuity plan. It was important to create a division-specific plan to supplement the corporate plan, as there are many specific elements unique and novel to the revenue cycle that stand juxtaposed to those other divisions, such as the clinical division. Another important factor is that many of the resources and requirements for the revenue cycle cannot be redeployed strategically for another division or discipline's use. This is largely due to training and available skill sets embedded in the talent pool itself. The next critical step the YKHC must strategically deploy is the corporate training of staff on the business continuity plan and setting up exercises to ensure that the plan can be deployed as expected, as well as assess for any oversights to the existing plan. Over the next 10 minutes, I will outline what the YKHC Business Continuity Plan is, the requirements and steps involved in successfully facilitating and deploying the plan, and throughout the presentation, I'll outline the approach I used to obtain data and synthesize it into the final product. The important thing to be very cognizant of when developing and implementing a continuity plan is that there is no silver bullet. There is no one-size-fits-all. A business continuity plan is as unique to organizations as fingerprints are to people. That all said, there are several boilerplate key elements that most business continuity plans contain. These elements can include, but are not limited to, an executive summary, a succession plan, delegations of authority, mission essential functions, recovery time and point objectives, a communication plan, resource and staffing requirements, mission essential vital records, mission essential systems and vendors, the way that the BCP is updated and revised, as well as testing and training plans. Executive leadership support is critical in ensuring sound collaboration and synchronization with the overall corporate plan. As such, the executive sponsors are the President and CEO, the Vice President of Finance, and the Vice President of Health Services. As the content for the business continuity plan was coming together, information about a new facility was found that could have consequences for the efficacy of the BCP in the near future. Notations were made to indicate the BCP may be impacted by these efforts. The first step to the YKHC Revenue Cycle Business Continuity Plan is activation. An incident has occurred that requires the rules outlined in the BCP to become effective. If there is a disruption to normal operations that impacts mission essential operations and functions of the RCM division, measures will be taken to prepare and pre-position resources to ensure continuity of mission essential services and processes. In my approach, through the lens of my prior tenure, I constructed the business continuity plan as though I were still there and I would be using it for my staff and teams. In doing so, I found it effective when building documents and plans with those teams to provide a combination of narrative form for explanation of concepts and to provide context, as well as tables and checklists which were more tactical and practical. Also, as a general rule, when creating corporate documents, I create them with the intent that I may be gone tomorrow, and that in 1 week, month, or year, it may be someone else that has to facilitate and deploy this plan. In so doing, the document was created so that anyone could pick it up and understand the process and what was required of them. Now, with all this said, in front of you is the first of several checklists that were developed to make the effort of deploying the BCP very tactical. This list outlines the initial actions for the division director. High level, these actions include notifications, generation of an analysis and a status report, assessments of the current facilities and services, and ongoing monitoring and maintenance of the division. After activation, it's important that everyone involved in key roles know who's on point for each and every mission essential function and who has the authority to do what. This brings us to the orders of succession and the delegations of authority. The YKHC Revenue Cycle Management orders of succession attempt to be linear within the department working down the chain of command. Most departments have a manager, supervisor, and several key team leads. Additional accommodations were made to bring on an outsourced revenue cycle director in the event of additional support being needed. The delegations of authority follow similar authorized lines as the orders of succession, but assign them to specific tasks such as negotiating contracts or allowing staff to leave early. It was important to have breakout components for separate authorization lines than that of the orders of succession. Orders of succession are important for managing minute-to-minute operations, but leads, for example, may not be authorized to make purchases of large supplies and need to know who to go to authorize that action. With the authorization requirements taken care of, the BCP turns to the prioritization of mission essential services and functions. The primary functions outlined in the BCP are departmentally centric and focus on 3 departments that are required for basic services to proceed. Those include registration, health information management, and patient financial services. Within the scope of each of these 3 functions, elements that can be impacted by disruption were organized and stratified for each function. The 4 core elements included patient safety, financial loss, legal issues or regulatory issues, and community and partner public relations. Each of the 4 core elements were prioritized and then graded against each function to identify what the impact over time is, as well as to outline specific subfunctions or processes within the scope of each area. With these priorities in hand, it is very clear which functions need to be brought back up first and where resources will be deployed to mitigate specific functional losses. Next, the team would turn to the recovery time objectives and the recovery point objectives that were defined in the business impact assessment. Each function was given a time frame when it had to be back up, as well as when regular backups should be to recover from. The Revenue Cycle BCP goes on to outline resources and staffing requirements. Under normal conditions, the Revenue Cycle employs a baseline of approximately 60 staff uses 82 buildings, and uses over 50 workstations. If it becomes necessary to relocate services to another location, this list can be used as a starting point to ensure staffing resources and functions are complete. During disaster response and continuity staffing, the Revenue Cycle Director will work with department heads to minimize the impact of departmental operations by maintaining, resuming, and recovering critical functions to the service levels identified in the recovery time objectives. The Resources and Staffing Requirements section of the BCP outlines how and where to deploy resources, and at which point additional resources are required by functional category. As an aside, because this is baseline data, this list can be used during normal operations during small-scale events such as staff turnover when a manager quits or if the internet goes down temporarily. A full-scale activation may not be required, but elements can be deployed and activated at the director's discretion. Vendors that are relied upon for interdependent services are identified. Vendor contact information may also be included in the vital records for the Materials Management Department. During activations, the department manager, in coordination with staff, will assess the department's essential equipment and supplies, as requested. During this process, the following steps will be taken. They will document the status of major equipment or critical supplies, both on hand and in use. They will take inventory of current equipment and supplies and create a resupply list. They will check the condition of storage or on-site stockpiles to determine the level of damage to equipment and goods, and, if it becomes necessary, they will relocate services to another facility. Then this list can be used as a starting point to ensure resources will be available. Another critical element of a viable continuity plan and program is the identification, protection, and ready availability of electronic and hard copy documents, references, records, information systems, and data management software and equipment, including protected health information and other sensitive data. Revenue cycle management personnel, vital records, and storage locations have been pre-identified. Staff will be deployed during an emergency to ensure the protection and ready availability of essential records to support essential functions under the full spectrum of emergencies. The revenue cycle management business continuity strategy is based upon using existing internal resources for continuity of services and operations impacted by a disruptive incident. Primarily, this involves the relocation of departmental services to one of three alternates. The designated department staff would relocate on an alternate location as identified in the business continuity plan. Designated department staff may be assigned to other departments, and staff equipped to work at home may be assigned to continue to work at home. If the incident requires an immediate evacuation response without being able to conduct a formal department closure procedure, in planning with the emergency management coordinator and business continuity planning team, each department has identified at least 3 evacuation locations. In coordination with the senior leadership team, it will be determined whether services can be continued in this location. If services can be continued, then resources needed will be identified. Devolution takes place when YKHC's primary and alternate facilities, staff, or both are unavailable, and essential functions must be transferred to someone else at a different facility. If we were unable to provide patient care to a single department up to the whole facility, the devolution plan is to work with the Bethel Family Clinic for primary care needs and community response partners to transport patients to Anchorage for services or capacity limitations at the Bethel Family Clinic. All services of the YKHC Revenue Cycle Management mandate will be outsourced to the extent possible to remote vendors and agencies. Bethel Family Clinic and Bethel Public Health Nursing will assist with required on-site assistance. Once it is safe to do so, reconstitution activities will commence. The communication plan outlines internal and external customers who are either an interested party, a dependent, or dependency of the functions from the YKHC Revenue Cycle. Customers will be contacted on a schedule set forth by the senior leadership team and Revenue Cycle Management leadership based on the incident assessment. The general rule in healthcare is to provide the minimum necessary in all things. For many areas, this is to ensure protection of patient privacy. In business continuity, this means that only those customers that may have an effect or a fringe effect from any incident needs to be notified as necessary and defined by the senior leadership team. Reconstitution is the process by which surviving and/or replacement organizational personnel resume normal operations in the primary operating space. In some cases, extensive coordination may be necessary to backfill staff, procure new operating space or facility, and reestablish communications, IT infrastructure, and essential records. Once it is confirmed that essential infrastructure and supplies are available, services may be resumed at primary workspace. The 4 key phases of reconstitution are to re-enter the physical space, ensure the safety, to reopen the physical space, to replenish supplies, equipment, and staff, repatriation of patients if a patient care in a patient care area, and resumption of normal service delivery. In order to ensure efficacy of the BCP, it is to be reviewed and updated on the schedule outlined on the slide. The division director is responsible for maintaining and carrying out the update schedule. Once updated, the plan must be approved and then provided to all responsible parties and previous versions gathered and destroyed. BCP updates will typically occur with a scheduled annual review. However, many events could trigger a need to reevaluate the BCP. Such events may include changes in vendors, systems, additions or changes to buildings or staff, lessons learned from training or exercise, or updates to department procedures and plans. The BCP will be trained and exercised on the schedule outlined on the slide. Trainings and exercises should occur prior to the required plan update in order for the lessons learned to be reflected in the update. The division director is responsible for ensuring the exercises and trainings are carried out and documented. These trainings and exercises will be held every year on the schedule defined for successful January 1 publication each and every year. The training and exercise routine and curriculum may vary dramatically from organization to organization depending on the needs and requirements. Now, remember this slide? As I said in the beginning, there is no one-size-fits-all. This plan, while containing many elements necessary for any business continuity plan, contains a significant amount of data and planning specific to YKHC, a rural tribal healthcare system in Bush, Alaska, covering an area roughly the size of Oregon. The needs of that type of organization and the steps to ensure continuity are very unique, as your needs are for your organization. Be sure to look carefully at each of those necessary elements and take the time to find the right answers for your organization. It could mean the difference between having limited impact from a disaster and not being able to reconstitute and restart services at all.